All right. Well, we are ready to go today. For those of you that are watching on video at home, glad that you're watching. Would love to have you here. So start praying, thinking about being here on Sundays. But I'm glad that you're at least watching from home. We just took some time to worship and watched a couple videos to do that today since we don't have a worship team up here. But I'm super excited because Muriel's going to be sharing with us. God has for a while just been inspiring her heart about community. And so she was excited and wanting to share with us. We will be next week kind of using what she talks about today for discussion next week when we just sit around and kind of talk together on Sunday. So be pondering what she's saying, writing down things that stick out to you, and we'll take some time at the end just to kind of meditate and think about those things. But before she comes up, I just want to pray for her and ask you to join with me in doing that and opening your hearts. Father, I thank you so much for this opportunity today to hear from Muriel, and we know you've been speaking to her heart and you've been inspiring her, and I'm so thankful that you are speaking to different ones in our community, those that are here today and those that are watching from home. And I ask that you would just keep speaking to us, that you'd keep guiding us as we're on this journey to see what kind of community you want us to keep transforming into. It's such an exciting but kind of scary and new time all at once. And so we just take a moment today to center our hearts on you, that you would be who's guiding us, that you would be who's speaking to us, that we wouldn't be taking our values and we wouldn't be taking our deepest thoughts and emotions from other places, but we let you be the one guiding us into what you have for us in this season. I thank you for your community of believers and the different ways that you speak to each one of us. I ask that you would calm Muriel's heart and help her just unleash the passion that's in her today. Amen. All right. Give her a hand clap as she comes up to share with us today.
Thank you. So good morning, everybody. Like Andrew said, I'm super excited to share with you all. I have been really inspired about the idea and the functioning of community for quite a while now. And in that, I have been echoing and would echo a lot of what Andrew has been sharing about recently, really believing that we're in such a special place as a community to do a lot of external. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, but I think we're in a really special season of whether that's external or internal growth, discovery, connection. And I think that this could look like a lot of different ways. It could be our physical, like actual numbers of community expanding, could mean us engaging new topics together, or maybe working on ourselves in real ways, whether it is that individual and or community sense. And so much more than I don't know, we don't know, but I'm excited to see. And honestly, as in line with Andrew as I am in this season, my inspiration about community, I got a buzz now. Yeah, something change? You good? But yeah, kind of also like Andrew was saying, like I'm in line with him in this season, but also I feel like my inspiration has stretched a lot wider than just this specific church community that we create together. So for me, it was really coming out of that lockdown season of COVID, and even during it, it was starting to become more and more clear our need for community on a large scale, and how people settle to not function in community all the time, including myself, including probably all of us. And I was seeing the ways that humans all over our nation had to come to the realization that people checking them out at grocery stores and checking them in at doctors' offices are valuable and absolutely essential for us to get by. We saw communities all over our nation once again gathering in the streets because sons and daughters, brothers and neighbors were being killed for the color of their skin, and it didn't seem like anybody was going to do anything about it. And as the lockdown caused families and communities to drift apart, we saw politics do the very same thing. We saw the homeless population suffer a new type of isolation and alienation as a stay-home mandate left them unaccounted for and ignored. And we saw our government embarrassingly exposed as they stumbled through with an amazing lack of consistency and a crazy amount of money that they don't really have. And I don't at all want to undermine all of the beautiful community action that did take place to get through this, but I want to, and all those people speaking up for community in the middle of this, but I do want to come alongside them and say that this was really hard, and it doesn't feel like there's a desire or pursuit for community at times. And as hard as lockdown was for everyone, I feel like every other joke I was seeing was like, yeah, I can't wait till this is all over, but when it is, please don't look at me or talk to me or touch me or come in 6 feet with me anymore, still. And I don't think all of those were jokes. And absolutely no shade if you have felt that way or even made those jokes. I think that we all have days like that, and there was still a lot of fear coming out of the lockdown. But for real, how are we gonna create community like that? And widespread, I wonder, do we feel a call to community? And if so, do we really know what that means? I don't think I have an answer to those questions, but I do feel like God has been inspiring me to get into our purpose, to be in community as people all around the world, as Christians, as a church body right here, right now, and really just as people that came and gathered in the same space this morning. So, what I really want to jump into and almost just skip ahead to are all the beautiful pictures that I feel God has been bringing me and inspiring me about healthy, authentic community. But I think that we first do need to look at some potential fears and challenges that might be holding us back from this type of community in the first place. So, jumping into some fears, I have listed a couple to go through together. And honestly, starting off kind of intense, we have, I'm not good enough. I wasn't fancy enough to get this to all go at different times, so you get all the spoilers, but just stick with me. So this fear, I'm not good enough. This fear can be seen on a spectrum from probably really, really depressing, questioning your identity and your inherent worth, to not really even that depressing, simply questioning if you have a specific skill or talent. And wherever we fall on this spectrum, though, it holds us back from participating in community. But in the pursuit of healthy community, this fear should lose all grounding as we see that our place in community is not at all tied to how good enough we perceive ourselves to be or a lack of a specific skill. Another potential fear could be that you feel like you don't have anything to offer. This fear could honestly probably put on that same depressing spectrum, and again, is one that no matter how intense is really real and negatively preventative of a fear. This often plays out in self-distancing, isolating, and even leaving community settings based on the assumption that one doesn't have anything to offer the group they've entered. Next, let's dive a little bit into vulnerabilities. The quote I put up here is, "My vulnerabilities are too much to handle." But really, there's so much to get into in fears around vulnerabilities. Being vulnerable in general often feels like a scary thing, whether it's just getting the words out of your mouth, asking for help, feeling like all you are is a mess of vulnerabilities, knowing you've made a mistake, or just putting yourself out there knowing that you could get hurt. Vulnerabilities can create close, genuine community functioning, but we can also see them and run, hide, fake, or ignore, not letting ourselves into deeper levels of community. Getting closer to the end of my list so we can look at some stuff that's hopefully a little bit lighter. We could also experience the fear of not wanting to lose or share our power. I just realized, oh no, I didn't spell lose wrong because I didn't put it up there. I think I spelled lose wrong in my notes. This I believe is really sometimes harder of a fear to identify within our own selves, but it still absolutely holds us back from community. This can play out on so many levels, including like the power that your bank balance holds and how you choose to share from that, the power of your time, letting go of your power of authority to relate with someone authentically, and even your power to keep yourself safe and comfortable at all costs. A couple weeks ago, I was reading through Luke, and I was struck with the reality, again, I think I've had this realization too many times, but that we are really called to relate to the Pharisees more than we want to. And I think that this is a fear that the Pharisees struggled a lot with. And I think it held them back from being part of Jesus' community on earth that he was creating, and the community of before and after he came and ascended. And then lastly, sometimes we could feel this fear that I simply don't fit in. For whatever reasons we can think of, we assume or get told that we don't fit in, and this becomes a huge fear blocking us off from community. The thing is, there's always going to be a reason you could find to fit into this box, and for that reason, this fear is really, really hard to break through. But when we silo ourselves off like this, we do the same to our understandings of community, making them narrow, inorganic, and greatly lacking diversity. And then just on a practical level, I mean, come on, do you really want to do that to other people in your community? Keep their lives so boring like that? So we'll move past those for now. I might come back to them a little bit. And really, from looking at all these fears, my gut reaction, what I want to do is I just want to jump into like reassuring, divine, and holy truths. I want to tell you all that none of these matter because community, because God loves you and all this stuff. But the truth is that that's not how life works a lot of the time. Lots of times we need to learn how to take care of ourselves and each other in the process of learning to believe truth. And sometimes spitting truth isn't going to be effective, useful, or maybe received at all. And so this in-between of walking through the processing of truth and immediate cares and concerns could be called a lot of things. But due to my being highly influenced by the youth services field and my desire to continue to change this narrative that self-care is more than just spa days and treats, that is exactly how I want to talk about it today. Authentic self-care. And so something I have come to realize recently is that self-care is incredibly unique to each person's experiences and needs. Sometimes a self-care activity that might bring peace, reflection, and grounding to one person can completely unease someone else. For example, a very common self-care practice is intentional deep breaths. Scientists have found that specific rhythms, such as like a count of 5 seconds in, hold of 7 seconds, and then a count of 8 out, can really help to regulate and slow one's heart rate. And I've even used this in the past and found it to be really helpful and calming. But I refrain from suggesting it to JL because something that I know and try to respect about her is that when she pays attention to her breath or thinks about it too much, it actually makes her very nervous and feeling like she is out of breath or hyperventilating. I hope it's okay that I'm sharing this. It's good for all of us to know as community. Don't tell JL. Yeah. Yeah. So in a moment of struggle or like stress or crisis, I'm not going to tell JL to just breathe. Like, the science does not matter at this point. All that matters is the person, the experience, and getting to a place of authentic self-care that is actually going to be helpful. And on a similar note, not all self-care activities that work once are going to work every single time. And that is totally okay. If one day you feel like you need to take a step back from, like, say, a social setting, to be alone, maybe just think, listen to music, and that really helps you feel grounded and calm, that's awesome, that's great. And if you try to do the same exact thing like a week later and you just feel like isolated and lonely and more uneasy than before, that's totally fair. We should all have that space to figure out what works for us and what we need in different moments and situations. And so these are the types of things that I mean when I say authentic self-care. And I bring it up when talking about community because I believe that the promotion and practice of this authentic self-care is vital in creating and functioning in healthy community with one another. So in attempts to normalize self-care activities and maybe give you some ideas, I put together a list. This can absolutely be expanded on, but here's what I've got so far. We've got that intentional breathing. That could work for some of you, just not JL, apparently. Essential oils. I have like lavender for calming. I have a focus blend, work really well. Take a walk or exercise in some way that you like, and more specifically, yoga. If you hate yoga, don't do yoga, but like, it's been really proven to be helpful as well. Some of that spa type stuff can be helpful sometimes. Bath, face mask, just resting in general. Listen to your favorite music. Talk to someone, whether it's calling or texting a friend or a family member. Whatever you're doing, if you need a moment, just like take a break. That's really important. Create something, painting, drawing, whatever it is, even if you think it's really bad, that is absolutely a form of self-care. You could play or cuddle with your animal. I don't know how many people came because they saw the picture of Garbanzo, but that's been working for me. Worship, pray, cry, those are all really important. JL could tell you more about this one, but plant something. Ego therapy is super real, and so just putting your hands in the dirt sometimes is really important, or going outside if it's not too smoky. Play or try to play an instrument. You could try journaling, could seek out or go to therapy. And then my last one, I don't know why this works so well, but like going to Walmart at 11 p.m. with someone you love is just like really good for your mental health. Like you cannot go there at that time and not laugh. So it's really good. We did this in Pendleton. I was a little bit scared for my life because the day before I had saw a man with a really big gun in Safeway, and I was like, I'm in love with Joe, but I look really gay all the time. So I was a little scared, but then I was with all of them, and we just laughed the whole time, and it was really good for all of us, I think. Maybe Andrew was kind of annoyed. Maybe we were kind of annoying him, but I would recommend that. But more seriously, I also totally believe that we can see Jesus practicing self-care all the time throughout the Gospels, and we can really take some cues from him on this as well. So one story that really stands out to me is the story of Jesus praying in Gethsemane. And in this story, Jesus really shows the power of intimate prayer while also taking even more care of himself by bringing his really closest friends along for support. There's some problems with that, but I think it's still a great example of self-care, or at least attempted self-care. Another story that really struck me recently, and you can totally feel free to call me out on this if you think I'm stretching it, but it's actually the story of Jesus stopping at Jacob's well to talk to a Samaritan woman. And we can see from reading the whole story that this was likely a very divinely planned moment, and Jesus had a lot to speak into this woman's life in a very purposeful way. But if we just look at Jesus' actions, I think we see a lot of self-care. So first off, he takes a break. Great move. He's been walking all day. He's tired. He's not going to keep pushing through. He needs a break, and he takes one. Next, he asks for something to drink. Yet again, fantastic choice. I should probably add that to my list. Because hydrate or dihydrate, it's important. And then along with that, he makes a new friend. That's great for our self-care as well. Expanding community, perspectives, and support systems. So maybe I'd be stretching it to say that that's the whole purpose of this story, but I don't think that there's a way we can get around saying that no self-care occurred, that we can't learn from his self-care in this moment. And in the process, many other people were positively impacted. And that's actually what leads me right where I want to go next. I really wanted to hit this self-care piece so hard because I really do believe that it gives us such a strong foundation to be able to function in community from. When we are taking care of ourselves, we're able to relate to one another and care for one another so much better. And sometimes our acts of self-care have positive and lasting impacts on others that we don't plan on or even maybe ever know of. Maybe Jesus didn't even fully know the impact that this one interaction would have as he took a minute to take a break. So with our self-care tools, practices, and intentions, we must pursue personal and communal wellness however God is leading us to. And I feel from this place, whether we are still very much in the process of getting our self-care together, I would say I'm probably in that boat, or we feel like we really got our self-care on lock, we are led as God's beloved followers to pursue justice, expanding our understandings and experiences of community. And I'm led to this place because as we peel through layers of fears and lies and insecurities of community, and we practice self-care and encourage others in our circles to do the same, it will be hard to ignore the very deep and real need for community that is shared by fellow humans all around us and all over the world. The pursuit of justice then becomes an integral part of creating community as we seek to understand and show to those who have been excluded and harmed that community is still possible, and it's a safe and worthy thing to pursue. Now, the reason that I specifically use the term justice for this process is because the reality is, just as we can't or would have a really, really hard time jumping from difficult lies to absolute truths easily, it is also near impossible to jump from oppression and trauma to perfectly equal standings and happy family potlucks. Those such as members of the LGBTQ plus community who have been told that they don't belong in community or that they maybe do damage to communities just by existing need to be met with justice and love. And once again, I'm not going to pretend that I have all the perfect examples or ways to do this, but I will offer that with intentionality and the understanding that everyone was created to exist in community and feel the love of community, we can be a part of changing stories and bringing justice to really hard and unjust situations. And I again step back and look towards Jesus. Yeah, this is the right slide. And I'm really in awe of the way that he continuously created community with justice and radicality all throughout his ministry. Through both plain and miraculous actions, Jesus builds community through justice that then flows into these abundant blessings. From the call on his very first disciples, we see this reality. Entering the story of Andrew and Peter, we are met with two hungry fishermen trying to provide for their family and to meet the tax requirements put on them as businessmen. This positioning is right in the middle of an unjust and corrupt system, one that keeps the poor people poor and the rich people rich. Andrew and Peter are out fishing when Jesus meets them because it's their job, because they need to catch fish to make money, because they are forced to make a specific amount of money to be able to keep their business, their property, their livelihood, and more. So when Jesus fills their boat to the point of sinking with fish, we witness a miracle act of justice. With this fish, they are socially brought out of the at-risk, on the edge of not making it place into a new level of safety. These men then become a part of Jesus' most close-knit community and get to be a part of bringing and experiencing even more justice and blessing with him. We could also point to someone like Mary Magdalene, whose story was met with the justice of God as Jesus gave her physical, emotional, and social healing, redeeming her and reintegrating her into his close community and the larger one as well. And sometimes the justice in these types of stories can be a little bit hard to identify right off the bat, I think. And I think that maybe this could be because Jesus' view of justice flips so much of what we think of justice on its head. In Luke 6, Jesus tells us to love our enemies, but he does not say anything about doing away with justice in order to do that. This is instead presented as this new form of community-building justice. The justice that one receives for doing something you hate then could actually be love, prayer, second chances, and hope. This is the kind of justice that breaks through walls that we put up, and it's the kind of justice that can bring community together in ways that won't do much less than fill up with abundant blessings. Now, following this example, I would argue that the cross was this ultimate act of justice to all people, honestly, but maybe specifically all the Pharisees and unbelievers, where we may have met people we think deserve justice with things like jail, taking someone away or out of situations or restraining them in some other form. These people all received the justice that they deserved in the form of eternal love, life, and godly desire. And now that is the foundation for which we get to function in and create community. And so all of this brings me to this place that I feel is kind of the main thing that God has been speaking to me about for a while. And that is really quite simply that we were all intentionally, beautifully, yet quite radically made for community. It is our destiny, if you will, our calling, our purpose. As much as we shy away from it sometimes, and as many fears as we may have, it is in our blood and our bones and our human makeup. And now here we find ourselves at somewhat of a crossroads, or maybe even like a junction, which, saying that out loud, I don't know if I know exactly what that word means, but I'm going to pretend it's like a train station type of thing. Yeah, so anyways, at this point, you could really book the nearest fear or doubt train, like we talked about earlier, and just get out of here. But, sucks for you, I was already prepared for that. This is where we practice that authentic, deep, and unique self-care. And in that process, of working to believe truths, we will always have these truths right here waiting for us to believe. They are that no matter how hurt or vulnerable or not good enough you feel, you have been purposed by God, a God who died on the cross to be in community with you, to be a part of community forever. You do fit in, you are enough, and whatever you have to lose is nothing compared to what you have to gain. God has called you into community through their justice and love that is not dependent on your skills, paths, or even your decisions. This really hit home for me when Andrew was talking about how God exists in family and community, not as a singular. So even as God defines us as image bearers made in their image, we are purposed as community reflecting beings. That's how deep it is in our DNA. This looks like being in community within relationship to God and the Holy Spirit inside of us. That's one function of community, as well as relating to God and the Holy Spirit in others, and in being able to exist and flourish in community with the whole beings of people, flaws and all. This multifaceted call to community is both exciting as it washes away doubts and fears and brings us into relationship with the divine and with others. And it can be really intimidated on one level as we still have to choose this every day. The truth that washes lies is there, but we have to believe it. And the people are there to meet too, but we have to reach out. And even in seasons where we aren't being called to reach out and be that person, community is still there, but we have to be open. But maybe that's not where you feel like you're struggling at all. Back to the junction. You could also go down the track of like, yeah, we already know this. We've been functioning in community forever. What are you talking about, Miriam? But that's where I want to challenge us and press us just a little bit further. Yes, we have prioritized and built amazing community. And that's beautiful and exciting and something to be celebrated. But we can't stop pressing to be community in deeper and more authentic ways. And some days, do we really still know what we are pursuing? Do we really take into account how valuable, needed, and called upon all of that is? And is our desire to pursue community with this kind of effort there when it comes down to it? Because even things like your inherent purpose only have the claim on our lives that we let them have. And really, this is where I want to start wrapping up. I've been given this inspiration to be a voice that talks about community, presses for it, digs deep into it, but I cannot perfectly pinpoint what your personal challenge is that you will need to work on, and I cannot create your own form of buy-in that makes this all worth it for you. I want to challenge us to remember that community is our purpose, and to think about how we might be missing new and beautiful aspects of community if we don't pursue others with open hearts, justice, and hope. Like, what are those things that you think we could be missing? In many ways, I don't think we'll really know until we experience them. But maybe for some of you, it's like jumping into a hip-hop class with Nicole and I, or it's going and buying new houseplants with JL. Maybe it's like collaborating with Duncan to create the website for your business that you've been dreaming about for a long time. Or maybe it's like learning how to make beer with Jim Anderson. Maybe it's something like a new worship practice. Well, maybe not yet on the beer. You gave me a good face. You're like, I don't know about that. But yeah, really, maybe it's a new worship practice. Maybe it's like a community night where we all just like yell and cry and punch pillows about how unjust and messed up things are in this beautiful broken world. The list could go on and on, honestly. Last Monday, I was given a presentation about community at my work, youth collaboratory. We've been doing some work to pursue equity on an organization-wide level for a while, and one thing that in a small group I was in, we kind of came to as a group was this idea that our ability to function as community sets the foundation for our ability to pursue and practice equity. And so I'm giving this presentation towards the end of the presentation time in a breakout room because it's all on Zoom. Someone asked me, can we all have different definitions of community and still end up functioning in healthy community? And my answer to that at this point of my walk in life and faith was yes, absolutely. Diversity of definitions and understandings is going to bring community to life in full and colorful ways. It's the pursuit that will unite us. So maybe the first step is defining what community means to you. Not so that you can make sure you're perfectly aligned with everybody else or rehearse your perfect answer, but so that you can search for why it's worth it to you. Thank you so much for letting me share today and being my community. I'm super excited to get to dive into all of this more through discussion next week and just continuing to be in community. Hopefully this was challenging and inspiring. I was practicing going over it with Joe last night. We got to the end and he was like, whoa, that was kind of dark. So kind of apologized, but not really. And I love you all, and I'm so excited to learn with you the ways to be in community. So I do have a couple reflection questions that I will throw up to just be reflecting on for a little bit, if that's still what you want to do. And then we'll really dive into them more in discussion next week. But I guess before I leave the mic, I would love to just pray over us. Okay, perfect. Jesus, thank you for being our guide and our foundation for community. Thank you for your justice and your love that has redeemed and renamed us all as your family, your loved ones, and your community. I pray that you would fill our hearts with gratitude for those around us and all that they do. Help us to see your spirit, the beauty, the value, and the desire that you see when you look at each of your beings. And let our hearts and our hands follow with action to pursue community with you at the center. I thank you for every person here this morning and every person watching the video. I thank you for all that they bring to the table, and I pray that you would release and deny any fears that might hold them back from believing their worth or their place in community. God, give us the strength and the courage to take care of ourselves and others as we fight alongside you to destroy lies, injustices, and function in the community that you made us for. We love you so much, God. Amen.
Awesome job. Just for questions. Okay, so here's some questions that Marielle has that we'll be talking about next week. Would you mind picking just one slower kind of worship song, something contemplative, deep? Take a picture of this with your phone, and I'll email them out this week too, though, so you can be kind of thinking about them, as we just play maybe one more song here, I want you to take a moment though today just to sit in what Marielle was talking about. And I'm not trying to change up oh, that disappeared. We'll put it back up in just a minute. But as we play this next song, you can definitely think about some of the questions that are up there right now. But again, those are some of the ones that we're really going to dive into next week. I think it would be good, as Marielle was talking, I kept hearing her say in different ways. Oh, Marielle's supposed to play the music, not you, Joni. It's okay. Somebody help Joni. She's pressing too many buttons. Joni just started playing her own worship music over there. I like it. We could have pockets of everybody playing their own. As Marielle was talking, I kept feeling like the same two questions kept coming up in almost everything she was saying for me. And so I'm hijacking the question time today, because we're going to talk about these next week. But as you ponder today, and just as we get ready to finish and leave, I want you just to sit where you are as we play this song and think about the question that she kept asking: what does community mean to you? And as you think about that, and take some time to really think about it, like see if what you're saying in your heart and in your mind lines up with what you're actually walking out, what you actually believe. But then, like, closely, very close on the end of that question, to me, it was also then, what is your pursuit level of that community? Whatever it is that you're defining as community. And I loved her point that we can all have a different idea what community is. If we're pursuing it, though, we're going to be building something beautiful. How are you pursuing that? And I think that's where we're going to be in this season a little bit of like, I don't know anybody that I've ever met that's like, community is a stupid idea. No, nobody really, Christian, non-Christian, nobody's like, no, community is a horrible idea. So everybody on some level is like, community is a worthwhile pursuit. The issue is most of us, or many of us, aren't pursuing it with anything. So again, it's not today for to feel bad or guilty. It's just to be like, God, help me see what do I really believe community is, and how, in what like real tangible way am I pursuing that? Okay, we'll just do one song just to contemplate that where you are. And if you're not feeling anything, just ask God to speak to you wherever you're at. All right, awesome.